Welcome back. We're gonna continue, I guess. I was just like 20 minutes trying to figure out how I'm gonna record this video, what we're gonna talk about. We're just gonna continue on. Assuming there's some awareness, I'll just go wing it. I'm winging it. We'll see what happens. So, in my recent videos, how it unfolded, and really, probably since like, I don't know, since 407 at least, 407. Since 407, I've been kind of moving back towards things that are in the Pacific and Baja California and just the Pacific Northwest and North America in general, the surroundings of the Pacific. That a lot of my previous videos were about, like in this range and back here, and my large igneous province videos. And I was watching, the reason, like part of what I'm doing is watching Nick Zentner's videos. And he just had Jeff Tepper in a follow-up interview, and I was like, oh yeah, I never finished that. I was only like somewhere in here, somewhere into it. So I started watching. I'm like, dude, having all these thoughts. And one thing that kept coming up, I don't think we have talked about it yet. I could probably actually go like this. Things on there. Let's see. Probably Eocene. Let's see. That might not be it. Resurrection plate is not what I thought it was. Let's see. Anyway. Here we go. This is what I was looking for. This. So this discussion of just for reference, Spencer Fuston, who was on Nick Zentner's podcast, and Johnny Wu, raising the resurrection plate from an unfolded slab plate tectonic reconstruction of northwestern North America since early Cenozoic time. Cenozoic being, I believe, the last 66 million since the Earth rapidly started to expand, basically. Okay, so point is, also there's the resurrection plate concept that I've already kind of forgotten. I'm realizing like this stuff is coming together in ways though. Okay, let's get to where it's more coming together, though. So there's that stuff going on in the north. Some kind of slab underlaying Alaska. Interestingly, a channel looking thing between them. I don't know. But more critically, this reminds me instantly of something I've seen before. Like the way this all is. Imagine that this is tilted a bit so that it's like straight on in there. Underneath North America, like, so let's go to this. Like this. Oh, I made something. I made a thing. The relative positions of Laurentia and the mid-Pacific region. So North America in the magnetic anomaly map. Here's Western Pacific with this boundary underneath here, like this. But let's say this is later in the process when it's like this. and like maybe earlier on, essentially what I interpret is happening is there's a current flowing through this region that is physically doing this, causing the Earth to expand and creating the magnetic anomalies of the Earth by the currents flowing through and compressing things to make the pink blue where currents are flowing. So at that time, though, there were layerings of this happening, and the currents were flowing throughout the Earth and colliding, though. Importantly, colliding, where this current ran into resistance and is like buckled, pretty much. Instead of just going straight on, it buckles in the resistance. And that buckling starts to create like a rippling effect of the current flowing through because of the resistance. And that leads to changes in the outcome of this, which then lead to a decoupling of the segment of underlying crust from North America that it was actually attached to. So it moves away while the Earth expands, and then in rushes, because a void is left behind, and then in rushes a slab, the Cascadia slab. That's what I would say is this. This is related to the actual missing slab. So it's like one of the things. Maybe I can find it in this video. No, in this video somewhere in this video, while talking to Jeff Tepper, he said somehow it gets in there, so there must be like some mechanism, and he kind of said like I leave that to the other specific geologists that would be more apt at that exact detail in describing how it happened. And I'm like, maybe what happened was a void started to form because this current was physically buckling. So let's go over here. Maybe open a new one real quick. Whatever. Okay. So there's just a current. So here's like North America, let's say. With the eastern boundary generally. And then South America, kind of coupled to it, but with a current going through it. That's, I don't know, let's just draw it like that. And then Africa, kind of hanging out in there too. And then a current is going through this all. But like before this, these are all attached. So imagine this is all one unit. And then let's keep drawing some other units. So up in this, before, like Laurentia, not actually North America, but Laurentia time, was Australia was up here with Papua New Guinea. Like wedged up at the North Pole region in Australia. I'm drawing this just for a reason. Which then had like India over here. India. And attached around to Africa, the other side, and then Antarctica in here. However, all is like a single landmass. And in the process, let's get rid of that. Get rid of that. Just get rid of this. In the process, there was a current. That was generally flowing over this way. Weird. Oh, it's still the background. It's flowing over this way. And running into current from like by India, basically, where the mantle puncture hole was. This current running into this current flowing this way. But like that way. So it was running into it. And this was producing, ultimately, a focal point that then was an eddy point atop Australia that we then see as this. And throughout, like underneath, not just atop, but throughout. So it was eddying. Here's Papua New Guinea, kind of on top. Basically atop whoa. Like, centered here, atop this region, while there was landmass here, so it was not just like a void or an ocean floor kind of thing, but eddying here, while it was wedged up, though, with Papua New Guinea, like, all the way up here, pretty much, before all this stuff kind of had a lot of new accretions and things happen in the area. Like, this is formed after the fact. Probably as it moved away, this filled in material to like push it away, which then kind of became like a separate landmass attached more to Asia as Australia moved down. So then over time, though, the key is, what I'm getting at is this moves. It moves down, dot, 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 until this eddy is over here. And Australia attaches with Papua New Guinea. Like there. And Australia, let's just draw it, whatever. So that it actually rotates it down along the coast. And I was noticing possibly bringing material with it. This place dates to Precambrian, which maybe is from generally with Australia, and then brought with it to Mexico, where it was apparently deposited, probably emplaced during late Paleozoic time. So late Paleozoic would be around 253 or 252, around the Permian Triassic. So it's as if that's critical to the Permian, like what that was. What that was then was Australia moving this way to a point where this current they're not, as this moves, these also move. So this becomes this, and this becomes this, essentially, with, like, again, India nearby. Maybe even further like that. I don't know exactly. Pardon me. They might have had spacing by then, but 252 million, maybe not quite. Let's see. Actually, when did the Tethys Ocean form? So basically, as Australia moved from the North Pole to the Pacific, or to Mexico, before the Pacific was formed, but to Mexico was the Tethys Ocean. Or wait. Oh no, from the end. Oh, okay, yeah, so from the time when Australia moved to Mexico until the Earth rapidly expanded and formed like the next layer of ocean, which was what we see today. So theoretically, it could do it again, where like all of the ocean floor becomes a new ocean or a new continent. Like, not that it would, but becomes a new continent, like above the ocean, where then the between fills in with even deeper crevices that all of the water flows into again in a similar way to form like a different structures, essentially. Not that it will, I'm just saying like that's kind of how it did it, where it just did it once and then did it again, where it expanded a first time to form the Tethys Ocean, but then it expanded a second time to form the actual final product of the Earth that we see today, at least. Which is then, so it was 541 to 252. In that time frame, according to geological dating, because this is caused by the flood, the global flood is doing this. That's what these currents are related to. Possibly literally are. Probably. Probably. And, but at that time, then we start to block this current directly. It basically forms this backstop here. Like, blocking it, just blocking it. And if we look at the, like down here, there's this, that's where the ammonite is. So it's like flowing pressure into it, and an eddy is going on here. But there's other pressures into this from all sides. That's the thing, is right here, there's pressures from all sides flowing into this thing. So even though this current is flowing into this, there's pressures from all sides. It just can't get through. So what does it do? It deflects. And it starts to carve like up this way. Where there's actually an opening, like, because Australia's not there anymore, so let's get rid of this. Maybe start another one. Let's just do North America again. A little more as it is, though. Wow, it's beautiful. Oh, wow, he really did that. Oh, okay, now he's just styling off. That's so... Okay. Some kind of... South America thing. And then Africa. Just kind of. Sorry, I know that was pretty terrible. Styling terrible. Okay, that's you get terrible too. Probably again, like, let's look at the ocean. Let's just look at this real quick. I'm pretty sure it's opening pretty substantially at that point. So if we go green, blue, light green, so really after rapid expansion, after the Earth rapidly expanded, is 66 million kind of time frame is really not that much additional expansion in the Atlantic, so it was already relatively expanded in the time of the Tethys, I guess. If the Tethys was 252 to 66 million, then it was relatively expanded then in the Atlantic. But the Pacific had a lot going on. Although maybe there was like unfolding of layers in the Atlantic, whereas still not as spread as it is. I don't know. Like I could see maybe something like if here's a continent, here's a continent, and there's a flow, an upwelling here at this place that's pushing them apart. I could see that upwelling kind of leading to like a stack that then kind of like slides apart. Like this part goes out, it just slides open kind of thing in some way, rather than like continuously doing it to reveal the underlayers in a way that looks more like it just like did it sequentially, because it's did it sequentially in layers in some way. I don't know, just a thought, but let's get rid of that. So we're getting somewhere important though. Okay, we still need to put Australia with Papua New Guinea generally over here. Solomon Islands, sort of. Probably making that too far away, but... Oh my god, sorry, Australia. Okay. And this moves. What's the... Okay, there we go. This moves over, like out of the way over this way, and rotates counterclockwise. Maybe not that much, but something like that. Where this is still flowing though. Like this corner. So let's see. There's a flow that's literally going through here. Or, sorry. This way. And through here. Possibly through here. Like through here, like that way, off of Africa. But going through here, that then pushes into this corner and just continues to push into it and pushes it all the way over. And as it does that, it deflects off of it. Okay, so the point is, let's look at some stuff. Here are the general currents of the Earth. So this would be the currents in which Australia was being pushed away. But it was really like over here it's so, like complex in a three-dimensional way with all the ocean space there and not closed, where North America was like this low, like it, over here relative to the Western Pacific. North America was much more like this relative to this area. When it like slid away, the final product of the expansions, like undercurrents detaching from North America and sliding away, had this this interaction, this positional interaction. Generally, I don't know exactly here. No, I'm trying to make relationships between them based on when these things happened. Like, so I've tied this to the Rocky Mountain Trench. I don't know if I still interpret that, but I did say Chinook Trough relating to Chalice volcanism in that time frame. That's when the Chinook Trough forms, 80 to 75 million. That's when the Chalice volcanism is considered. Slab failure relating to the formation of this portion down here of the Emperor Trough, which is why there's this arc element to it. Arc element, slab failure, these are all things that are relevant to people talking about this area geologically. Like, we see slab failure, some kind of thing like that happens in these places. Not quite an arc. These dates are relevant. It's like not a coincidence. The reason is because it's literally was like this. When these things were happening and forming, North America was atop it. It was moving atop it. It wasn't just like stationarily atop it. It was moving. Like, probably like almost forming some boundary layer between them as it moved, that like this was participating in all these aspects of these large igneous provinces over here. Shatsky Rise, Hess Rise, Mid-Pacific Mountains. But let me get to this post real quick. Speaking of Mid-Pacific Mountains. Recently I came to the conclusion, that's again, so Mid-Pacific Mountains, if you don't know, is this feature here. These are the Mid-Pacific Mountains, which formed in like 145 to 66 million, something like that, I believe. I'm not completely sure. Somewhere in that time frame, they formed. And when I was like looking into it, I said, well, this goes over here. This goes like over that way, and it almost looks related to this area. And I looked at the magnetic anomaly map, and I'm like, could it have literally been here? This is what kicked off me realizing the Western Pacific was underneath North America. I was like, wait a minute, I think this formed over here, like under here. But now I'm like, what I was thinking in this post is, what if, like, first of all, I've come to the conclusion, it kind of makes sense that what I call the dragon, the nose of the dragon, this point, this thing here in the Mid-Pacific Mountains, the lead Guyot, or seamount, in the mid-Pacific Mountains, which have these interesting little things off of it. Anyway, the lead one, if we just follow it, like this literally points at it. And if we go back over this way, it points right here. And if we look at the magnetic anomaly map, that's over here, like right here. So then I just thought, well, maybe it was up here, like this, goes up this way and down and around and like this kind of thing. And I was like, oh, maybe, and like, I kind of see curvatures in this area that resemble what could have been that. So then I thought maybe it was there, or both, like it moved around, maybe, I started thinking. And today I was like, isn't that curious? It looks kind of, what if it's like here, up this way, and like up around Bighorn, so maybe going to Bighorn, down to here still, so like it hinged, imagine it hinged, and there's a current flowing in from over this way, across this way. So I guess this is going across here. I gotta consider this current more. Because the water I've started to interpret was going the opposite direction to where I interpret the undercurrent was going, although it may be that the undercurrent actually in this region went one way and the upper current went the other way in this region. So let's just say that there's a current flowing somewhere from over there that goes over this way. That starts to kind of apply a pressure, and some other currents applying a pressure from like this way. And some other current that essentially is making this point like a hinge point, but it kind of wedges it open. It's so that this area gets filled with material to physically move the mid-Pacific Mountains away from where it was forming, potentially at the rift. This is like a rift in the pre-existing rift. So that's why I'm like, maybe this pre-existed in the mid-Laurentian rifts geology. I don't know what it's called. I forget. Mid-continent rift system, 1.1 billion. So it pre-exists the expansion, which began around 550 million. At least geologically, that's when the evidence is most apparent. 541, which is apparently when Australia started to move from the North Pole, so it was probably happening before then. But the mid-continent rift system was existent at 1.1 billion, which is definitely before the flood happened geologically. So if that's the case, maybe, which is here, literally, right there, this part, maybe it like contributed to some vibrational thing here that then led to ultimately this being wedged open, like a current going this way and just filling in the area, but off of like a backstop of this rift like resistance of the just structure that is some reason. And also other currents over here just generally pushing it downward, but like currents from the other direction holding it in position. Like over here is a balanced point between all the currents while it kind of turns open over here. So notice it's turning this way, but then over here, so current was going this way into Australia, but really it's getting like deflected upward too. So it's like turning the current the other way, while over here this region's turning almost like around a pivot point. of what would have been here. So like just rotating down this way and up this way. Just down is where it's all broken apart and gone, like not attached to North America. And up is where it opened the space, but in both instances, it opens a space. Over here, it opens a space between North America and the Western Pacific plate. And then over here, it opens a space between the plate itself and the center. Because essentially what I'm getting at is, I believe it came in like this. So let's just go to this thing. Current, it said current into resistance. Let's just watch this a second. Oops, I'm the worst. So basically, current coming in from the right side, running into resistance over on the left side, which is really another current, but just resistance in general, running into some kind of containment, where then it is forced to deflect back, but it does so in a regular manner that just goes back and forth, but then it continues to go back and forth to a point where it actually extends outward like this, which then leads to this back, like coming back the other way, no longer able to get through back the other way. So it tends to then go back up, leading to like an actual cycling upward is what I'm getting at. So it's got both sides and upward by extending like this. And then the upward does the same thing, which then kind of comes to some balance point where then it opens, at which point the Western Pacific opens. But mind you, this is happening with North America, like here, or whatever, like here, basically. And then it starts to open with this along the boundary of North America, pretty much. And then at this point, detach. It starts to detach. And then it starts to move away. Like once it opens, opens. And then it gets so big that it moves away. Because it can't open any further, so it just pushes it away and expands. Provides a backstop, I guess. Enough of a backstop for this current flowing in, forming all of this to actually more easily expand the Earth than to expand this region specifically. So it fills in over there, like adjacent to it, because it's like big enough to fill in the space and push out the Earth's radius by pushing into actual adjacent material to almost like add another block in the arc. One of those like block arc made of blocks. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. I mean, it's pretty much like this, but to literally, it pushes out space, fills in the space with a new material. It's not quite as like much, so it's like lower, and then has another block in the crust of the Earth that's occupying its space and holding it from collapsing inward, because it's got like structure there. It's not just a void, but in order to do that, it literally pushes the Earth apart by these currents of the flood, or did, which are just currents, not necessarily water currents, but in this case were water currents. So that's what I'm thinking about, like like here. Maybe let's do this. Right. Let's go here. Let's keep going. Something probably to this first image I said, just kind of pondering, like, it kind of looks like this maybe, because it, like, I really feel like this point matters for the mid-Pacific Mountains as that leading seamount. So, and this just matters as a major structure in North America. So, like, maybe. And then that over there, I mean, maybe is what I was thinking. So then I would have pushed it open, filling in this space maybe with a current flow, though. So like a flow of water is flowing this way, but it's just pushing material to fill the space, just like we were talking about just then. Like in that layer, not the entire, like this could be multiple layers, like just an individual layer in that whole thing. Enough of the child's blocks. We've got important drawings that are certainly not childish. So some important things here. Let's go over here. So we got this bend. So essentially I said going from like a central thing like this, and what even gave me the thought was Florida. Like, Florida's got this weird thing going down the middle. What if, I thought, what if it was some kind of current that was just kind of like currents can do, elongated and have some central thing, and that was happening adjacent to a bigger occurrence of it. Like, tends to happen with, like, for example, the Carolina Bays. There, I found it. And the Carolina Bay. Singular bay, which is what that image is. Is a bay. That's the shape of a Carolina Bay. Just enlarged and overlaying the structure here. It's literally fractally there, and then there's a bunch of these over here off the side of it. So interestingly, this seems to be like Florida, and that little dash down the middle of it, which then gave me the impression that maybe it was going on over here. So that like led down that chain. I didn't mention that, but where I was like, this maybe goes like this, and if we go over here again, where is that? Like, it's kind of like a diamond pointing somewhere, and where is it pointing? Right into this nook of the Philippines. So there's a diamond thing going on with a focal point at the largest caldera on Earth, formed at the time of the Hawaiian Bend. Huh? Huh? Wait, what? Why? 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 Does plate tectonics explain that? No, it does not. No, it does not. Maybe it might be like, well, clearly the plates are focusing at the point, and we knew that already. The Earth did not expand. Don't say the Earth expanded. But if we go over here some more, where does it go to? Interestingly, to this dimple area. Like, not exactly to here. Like, this upper side goes kind of up and along the far boundary over here that goes down that way. But really, like, this portion is more, like, across this way. So it kind of points more there. And over here, if we follow, like, this boundary, it kind of points more there. So it's like a far boundary point was over here, which is then this little extending thing, which I recently realized with regard to China in my last video, that current was flowing like through this area like this, but also through here. So there's a flow like this, and some of it was going out and around this way and going through here and out this way. So this was like an exit point, but also a focal point across this little diamond thing, which again, there's a diamond here, big and small, weird. Also big and small, maybe, like this, and like this. Like this was doing maybe the same thing on a much larger scale. Actually, it looks almost like, this looks very much like that. Which I would have, I've been relating to up here more, to this area, where Shatsky Rise and Hess Rise are related to in some way. I can't remember anymore. I'd have to go back through the specifics, unfortunately. What else? So then this here, 125 to 75 million, is when this is geologically dated to by drill samples, in spite of the claim based on magnetic lineations that region is 180 million years old, crustal age based on the magnetic lineations, just by saying, well, following the pattern, that area should be 180 million years old. It is drill sample dated to 125 to 75 million years old, and dated to the time of Ontong Java Plateau, because essentially what I see happening as well, isn't that interesting? On top of this little animation, which I don't really bring in the Ontong Java Plateau, but like when this is going back this way, it seems like there's some kind of buildup of material. Like it wants to go back, but it's not, it's like struggling to go back, so it's just building up material, probably. It's going back and trying to go across, but there's all this cross current going back and forth. So it's like held there, so it probably firstly eddies and just builds material. Like, oh, can't get anywhere. I guess we're just depositing stuff here. Makes the Ontong Java Plateau, but then that provides like the backstop to actually allow for this propagation of a northward flowing current, which then opens into the Trident as we see it over here, but begins off of Australia at the Ontong Java Plateau, but specifically off of Australia, like off of like the boundary of this eddy, like in this region really, and moving over to particularly the boundary of Australia until ultimately moving over to here. But at an earlier point, it seems that it literally created these streams through this crustal chunk, which we've talked about before, which used to be over here. Is that how I interpreted it in the past? Fairly certain there's evidence that it moved, like I looked into it. I don't know if it would move from there or what, but something curious about it. But essentially what I'm getting at is at some point in the process, it gets moved out of the way. Maybe that literally leads to the Ontong Java eruption. So like if currents flowing up this way, it's still let's start a new one. It's still just going back and forth like this. And these whatever, back and forth, not widening. Currents going all off that way too. Ontong Java, here's kind of a balance point. Australia. Ontong Java Nui, which really goes across the balance point. There's Ontong Java Plateau. Ontong Java Nui, which has Mini Hiki Plateau over here, and Hikarangi Plateau down here. So this block builds down here. This portion gets pushed to the right. So this moves that way. This moves this way. This kind of just stays adjacent to Australia, Papua New Guinea. And Solomon Islands. Some kind of Australian region. Okay, and this though, like it ultimately cannot go back past this very easily, so it leads to an eddy here, which then builds this stuff, and maybe even leads to like something like this, where there's another eddy that's maybe going more like this, which is maybe part of why it separates, but it's like a collective eddy that's joined. I don't know if that's possible with the way the circles are going, although that would kind of propagate this way, so that works, and this one works for propagating that way, and then I guess going through, like, cutting between them more so than through Hikarangi, so there's like as it runs into resistance, it does this thing where it elongates and does back and forth, and applies a back pressure into Hikarangi. So if we look at Hikarangi, it's not just Hikarangi, it's also New Zealand. But Hikarangi's over here, so it's applying a pressure from up here down through this region directly into here and Hikarangi. And then here's Manihiki, and here's Ontong Java. So these got all moved apart, shoved apart. This got shoved this way, separated this way. Here's that plate that got shoved over here. Ontong Java. Here's the newly formed Pacific region where it opened between in this area. Next to the Mariana Trench, mind you, which we really haven't gotten into. So notice real quick before I forget, this line. Down, 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 down. And if we just kind of ignore that it bends, but like this is where something major is happening, but down, basically like a balance point. If we acknowledge the under area here, at least over there, but like generally, and maybe that's why it bends out part of it. Like it's got a balance point through, like more directly through to like here, but then it arcs out to this balance point. So like some relationship, which is why it arcs out as much as it does, probably. Some kind of relationship. But the point is, what is this? Like, why would that line matter? Because it's like one of the up currents. So like, while there's an up current over here that's flowing up this way and flowing back and forth in this way though, like up and back and just cycling like that beyond this, and then it spreads open the Pacific. Like it starts along like here, it starts along here, and this way too, and it physically opens the Pacific in the same way as the western area opens over here, physically opens, just pushing apart. The space here opens, and like a single flow of current goes in and widens as well, in the same way that it widens from a single flow to like fill the space pretty much as it can. So did this up-down current that then goes up, down, up, down, up, down, like literally like this, like this one, but also like to the point where it reaches that point where we were looking at the Mariana Trench and North America as like its boundaries of back and forth, to actually be opening the Pacific between that line and over like here, wherever exactly the original breakpoint was, like tear point was, and then it started to spread, but along that tear point that was much initially over there and moved to over here, like the balance point between stuff over on this side, all the pressures over here that are pushing eastward, and all the pressures over here pushing westward, that then have a balance point that like literally moves over here to be over here, and in the process opens the Pacific. So that's part of what's going on, I would say. Let's keep going. I said Jurassic quiet zone. Like, this is an anomaly that plate tectonics just ignores. Literally ignores it. They don't care. They don't care because they aren't under threat by anything. There's no flat Earth is the only thing that gets any attention. But that's not an actual geological model. It's just like an internet thing, pretty much. It doesn't have technical papers in the same way as expanding Earth. Like if I go, let's see, actually, I might be just speaking out of ignorance. I don't even know. But if I go like this, expanding Earth, geology, like there's gonna be legitimate papers that actually talk about it like this. Although this one is not, this one's just denying it, so that's not a good example. But the actual ones, like this, an expanding Earth on the basis of seafloor spreading and subduction rates. So like actual geological paper proposing the Earth expanded. Those exist. Flat Earth? I mean, see the difference though? That's the point. But that's why expanding Earth is muted, because it's true, and plate tectonics cannot compete with the truth. So the like winning method has been to just utterly silence it, to the point where when there is an anomaly like this, it doesn't matter. No, like the vast majority of geologists don't even know. They don't know this anomaly exists and are not concerned about it. I mean, certainly those who know are like, that's a little odd. Maybe like trying to come up with reasons, but that's a little odd. But like, it's, if you go to like the Big Bang, for example, the top 10 problems of the Big Bang, like something like this, or like 30 problems, you'll find like an actual list, sometimes observations that are like actually like that, like what's going on, just observations that are, I mean, regardless of your interpretation of the Big Bang, is not true. Sorry, not sorry. Like there's actually things like that. Let's see. Let's just see. Top 10 problems of plate tectonics. AI. Well, since plate tectonics is true, we'll just tell you natural disasters. Oh my god. Here's one that maybe is worth clicking. I mean, it's answers in Genesis. Although it doesn't look like problems. They're just trying to relate it. So like, what is plate tectonics flawless? Because I don't think it is. That says 180, 170, whatever. These papers, I didn't just, sure, I just drew it on there, but I drew it on there from one of these papers. Possibly this one. Cretaceous normal superchron from 120 to 83 million is in this list. Somewhere in this list, the paper says the Jurassic quiet zone is from 125 to 75. Let's see. Quiet. Maybe here. There it is. Cretaceous igneous rocks were cored at sites 800 and 802, whereas the basaltic Jurassic basement was recovered at 801. So there it is. 170, but let's look at this paper then, because it's not at the Mariana. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's not at the Mariana Basin. It's at other, like, I believe it's the Pigafetta Basin. Like north of. Pigafetta Basin is like up here. I believe it's this area specifically. where this is East Mariana Basin that dates to 120 to 75. So it's possible, like, it almost like has a spiraling in that the closest in age to the surroundings is actually outer region that actually looks more accurate. But point is, see my other videos. This quiet zone matters. Then I unfortunately cannot post things on Twitter very easily anymore. So this was something I came across that kind of led me to think, well, like if you look 280 million, so pretty much as Australia is moving down here and then blocking this area, it's moving down, and then boom, orogeny. Interestingly, orogeny there too. Makes me think of a shallogram. Like a standard one. Like, of course they're not any of them standard enough that that made any sense. Made me think like that. Like that is essentially something of this nature. Okay, dudes. What else we got? Sorry, I've been doing all sorts of stuff. I'm not really like prepared per se. I'm like, fuck. My posts on Twitter, I can't post anymore. Dude, Twitter is fucking trash now. They just get deleted. My posts just get deleted like instantly. Several times. They're not even there anymore. Oh my god, this hologram. Dude, I gotta show you guys this real quick. I just gotta show you guys real quick this hologram. Oh my god. And then this. Oh my god, wait for it though. I'm just clicking through real quick. Clicking through. Clicking through. We're gonna talk about this one in way more depth soon. But I basically said, well, it looks like there's a chakra. Like this has the shape of a chakra. If we go like here, notice there's teeth type things up here. And then it kind of goes down, over, down, in more of a like curved way like that. So teeth near the top, teeth things up here, and then down, over. It kind of has like a ant there. So it kind of had a chakra shape, I thought. So then I found one over here. I'm like, it really does kind of have a chakra shape. Like over here, there's little like nub type pointing out things over here regularly. I don't want to click back, but just take my word for it at this point. that these, and then like an inner one of the chakra that I drew on the previous picture, and then an outer one that actually has a boundary over across here. So it's kind of like forming a chakra here across this thing. I'm like, what is going on from the other side? So that's this chakra from the other side. And then here's another segment where clearly, like right here, there's a chakra. And then at that chakra, you can probably see it, there's a circle that's got like a central circle there that this line is within. So it's pretty defined. It's got the waves over here again. Like as it approaches the boundary, it turns into that, where the chakra is more smooth. Just like we were just talking about, although it's a little less like formed in the environment. It's also got like a which tends to happen down the middle of some chakras, like, or shalograms, like here. There will be just literally a path. Maybe we can find one. I don't know how long it would take though. I feel like I saw one recently. I don't know though. It's raining. I sure hope my power doesn't go out and ruin this file. I should probably end soon. Oh my god. Just seeing like this shallogram. I remember you, baby. Whoo, we bought this shallogram, right? So, shit. Oh my god, I forgot how epic this one is. You'll have to find it if you care. So there's that, and then I was like, wait a minute. There's like little circle. I drew that one, but then I started like going down, and I'm like, wait, it looks kind of like it wraps around. Check it out. I don't know. Maybe we can go to the actual thing over here. So we got that circle, but then like just it's got to be like the right, not too zoomed in to lose detail. It looks too blurry, I guess. Like there's a circle there. Mind you, I will have this shallogram soon. So we'll see this in more detail. But going up this way, down, up, and then like the way these are just kind of like little horns, like a conch shell horn looking thing. And then over here, there's like a line there, and the circle there that I then drew is like a spiral here. So going like from here around it, like kind of waving through here kind of thing. But essentially doing it like that. And it's clearly like also off this way and other details, and having this current go out this way that then relates to over there. It's kind of like that. Just not as pronounced, and they're cutting through like that. Then I was like, well, look at this. This one looks like a chakra too. But in this case, what's fascinating is around it is like the ammonite inside the chakras. So like, I don't know. Like the way these arc. So here's a chakra and they just arc like that. So it has the shape. Let me just open it again. And I assure you, this very much relates to what we talked about today. Oops. I assure you. I mean, where do you think these ideas are coming from? Shallograms, baby. Shallograms. I cannot say it enough, shallograms. You can kind of see down there that it's just so pointy. And then like even the contours of that look kind of like they're hooking in there. And then it has this abrupt little oop, kind of like a chakra. And then this just like literally has the arcs of the ammonite. I mean, in this way, it makes sense as the arcs of an ammonite. Kind of interesting. And then there's this angle, which I then drew like this. And mind you, here's that chakra we were looking at. This one. So this is what I have over here. And then this is down here. So we got that chakra there. Chakra. And then I just kind of started drawing on here. There's a little circle there of note. And then like a dashed line, pretty, like, not dash, but where I drew the dash line, like a line there. That's pretty noticeable. Another line here, and it's more noticeable in just the different colors of materials. Different materials present there. And then across the line, there's like this arcing like here. So kind of, there's a chakra, and then I think I don't know if I said it initially, but like if we, like here's a chakra, but like here's another chakra though, like right there. So it's kind of like extending out this way. So that corner there is really a chakra. Kind of, it seems. So here's a chakra of like another energy level of that chakra. And then away from that chakra, if we look at this at that angle where this is like more of a chakra here, and it doesn't either chakra, this kind of looks like a lobe out of the chakra, forming again like an ammonite type thing, but only like a segment of it. Where it's like essentially trying to. So my thought is, and then here's another layer. So it's like clearly there's so many evidences in this shallogram that this is not a fossil. It's really important if you're listening to this, you understand this is not a fossil. This is etched by current flows, just like we were talking about with everything else. And so it goes. And like there's nuances of it, like a layer over here of like another shell with a rib. So there's another layer out here. I don't know what exactly to make of it. Almost like it was forming a like larger structure, just didn't have material. And instead, essentially, my thought is there's like an imbalance. And I saw this GIF. Maybe I can at least click it. I don't know why. It looks so like what I'm kind of thinking is like two systems. Here's a node, so like a system where this current, essentially a current flowing in this way, running into resistance where it is caused to hook in, but then it's like a focal point over here, and then another like current's flowing that way. But then another one that's like was going across this way that seems to go around this, I guess, in some way, so that this boundary is still there, like parallel to this one, which is why I feel like it's related to some general current going parallel to this one, that they both are running into resistance, so they both bend, and they both bend inward, but instead of like a normal ammonite would. They don't run into each other. Like a typical case of an ammonite would do something that goes like this. Let's get a color. I don't know, red. Something where this side and this side actually meets in direct opposition. Sorry. In direct opposition. Whereas here, what we're actually seeing is like something over. Like, it's really not. Oops. I can't delete that so easily. Something over there. And something offset over there. So they're not in balance. Which is then apparently leading to some additional interactions of this that I feel like maybe is like frozen this though. That's like, it's like frozen a galaxy merger, literally, because these are two systems. Like over here's a system with like a node, here's another node that are energetically related to the whole, but like the node is a fundamentally important aspect of the whole, that there is this node, kind of like a nucleus. And I just feel like it's kind of like, even notice it's got this line across here, and then the way it does this in multiple sheets, so like multiple sheets, line, multiple sheets divided by the line, and then another one over here that's more like along this plane, like there's one thing there, and then some internal area here where maybe there's not really current reaching it. I don't know if that relates to anything. It just kind of looked related enough that it looked cool. Then I also came across this one, which is kind of similar. And the main thing I thought was interesting was that really this looks like a chakra in other images. It does, like these just look kind of like the other things we are just looking at that are not quite seashells, not quite ammonites, whatever they are. These things. But when we look at it from these angles, it just looks like that. But when we look at it from this angle, suddenly it looks like a chakra there and like a negative imprint to a chakra negative imprint, but it hasn't become a negative imprint yet, maybe. So instead, it still has contours of this, like, just beginning to create these ripples that are then vibrating out to shape the stone in ways. Okay, guys, pardon the shallogram interruption, and I don't know. Hope that was interesting. I find it so epic. It's so epic. The Pacific is so cool. There's a reason people who are proponents of plate tectonics talk about the Atlantic. I was watching some geology video where they're just like, well, in this time, Alfred Wagner noticed that the North American, or the Americas, and Europe and Africa fit together like a jigsaw. This was the beginning of continental drift, later to develop into plate tectonics. And they totally ignore that the Pacific does it too. It's like, dudes, if that's your basis, and it can be done in the Pacific also, doesn't that mean the pieces fit? It's kind of like the inverse. If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. Like, if the pieces fit, That's just it. It is what it is. All right, peace.